Hello Shamus, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be profiling the Salamangreat deck profile. I'm sure if you come from Sparta King's channel, you'll know that this is one of the decks that I play a lot. But yeah, I've just played this deck since release, and I've kept on improvising the list over and over to make it as competitively viable as it possibly is. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite decks still to this day, and I've been testing pretty much every day with this deck to make sure I get every single ratio perfectly correct. But yeah, I have almost a year's experience with this deck, or well, yeah, so almost a year's experience with this deck. Um, yeah, this deck's just really solid right now. I think it's an underrated rogue deck, and it can actually catch people up by surprise, especially with some of the trap options that I choose to go with. So let's get started with the deck profile. To start, obviously we're running the one Gazelle. This card is really good right now. Obviously it's really good in the deck. I really want this card to 3. But yeah, it's super standard, it's chain blockable. It's just such a busted card. Next we go with the Double Foxy. Again, this card is really solid. It does the trick every single time. A lot of times you don't even need to use the first effect just because you're going to probably want the extender more since you run a larger hand trap to trap lineup. But yeah, still a super solid card. Does its job and does everything right. Next we go with Double Spinny. This card's still really solid 2 of. It is probably still the best extender, one card extender in the deck, because it's the only card in the deck other than Gazelle that will by itself be able to give you a relinked Salamander Wolf. So yeah, that's really good. Then we go for Double Jaguar. I still think, even though I don't run Desires, as you can see in this list, I still think this card is a pretty good 2 of. But it's definitely cuttable to 1 if you don't run Desires. Yeah, this card's just really good in the grind games, especially. It just comes up a lot. Run the 1 Falco. I cut this card for a bit, tested it, and I just kept seeing that more and more I needed this card in my deck, because it does provide some of that utility to bounce your cards back to hand, to give you also another 4 on board with Jaguar to make Baguska or Dweller, depending on what you're playing against. But yeah, it provides a lot of utility, and I think it's still a staple card to run in the deck, as also a second effect does come up sometimes. Next, we're not running Debug. Because it's a really bad card right now. We're running Flame Buffalo because this card is the way to go. It's really good against pretty much any hand trap right now, because like it just helps you play through other cards that people play, because it can't get negated. It can't get negated by cards like Ash, because you're gonna always chain block it with Phalanx. Can't get negated with cards like Veiler Imperm because it doesn't resolve on board, which cards like Debug can get negated by those 2 cards. So Buffalo is just objectively the better card, and having that draw 2 is really huge. That gives you so much advantage and more opportunity to open up into your traps that aren't searchable. So I really love this card at 3. I've always liked this card over Debug, even before, because this card just provides that value that Debug doesn't. With the inherit, your opponent doesn't know what you're adding. Next we go for the Triple Parallel XC. This card's still busted. I don't know why people are cutting this card. This card's still mandatory. Keep in mind, this card is still very mandatory for this deck, and it still does amazing things for this deck. It also helps you turn 2 to go into the access code OTK, which is just really important to have this card in your deck. It's as simple as that. Next we go for Triple Ash and Triple Bell. So we run only these 2 hand traps because I think these are the 2 most impactful hand traps right now, and they're the only ones that I feel like should be run. I think anything else gets too cloggy. You try to main Jewels, it doesn't work. You try to main Lancias, it just gets a little bit too much. And if you try to main things like Meister, I've just realized that Meister is much worse than cards like Bell and Ash. It doesn't do as much. So in all logistics, I prefer having the Ash and Bell because they just do more. These are just the best hand traps right now, and simply what you should be running. Some other acceptable cards, if you don't have some, like, if you just want to run other hand traps, is still Meister. Meister's still fine. Also, a card that's good, still pretty good, is DD Crow. But again, I think these are two you should stick with. Again, if you're like really budget and you don't have access to Ash, I'd say throw on some Meisters because they're pretty cheap. But yeah, that's it for the hand traps. I think I just like to keep it basic. 6 hand traps is more than enough for me. Yeah. Then we go to the 1 Salamangreat Circle, triple Cyanide Mining. This ratio has been standard since Cyanide Minings came out. Yeah, you can't really ask for more than this. This is just the best consistency cards in the deck. And yeah, the fact that Cyanide Mining discarding any of your salad cards triggers Gazelle is just really huge. Next we go to Will of the Salamangreat. This card is really fantastic. Sorry, over the wrong one. Will of the Salamangreat is really fantastic. It just doesn't do as much as it used to, just because no one's really running Nib, and if you get Nibbed, you just set up your traps. So I just really think logically one of it is much better. 1 Sanctuary. This card's also really good. Sanctuary does its thing, and it does it well. This card is really fantastic. Yeah, you can't really justify not playing it because it's your whole deck. But yeah, opening it just sucks. Then we go Double Roar, Double Rage. These are cuttable to 1 each if you're not running Desires. I still like, for the grind, having 2 of each. I think it's still really nice to hard open 1 of them. And even hard opening 2 of them is fine. It also provides bait. I just really think these cards are fantastic to have 2 of each. Again, if you need space though, cut 1 Roar, cut 1 Rage, and you can provide more hand traps, more like maybe Desires if you like it. It really depends how you like your list, but I just think this is the best way to play the deck. Next, go triple Solemn Strike. This card is just ridiculous. This card's so mind-boggling. Like it just ends. It genuinely ends turns. Especially against Drytron, when they tribute for cost and you strike their card, negates activation, just gets rid of it. And if you have another card to follow up, like if you have D-Barrier to follow up with the Ritual, they're not making too much. The best they'll end on is Zeus, and that's really no big problem. Zeus is actually not too big of an issue. Yeah. Next one, triple Torrential Tribute. This card's fantastic as well. Torrential Tribute. Actually, this is probably the MVP of the deck, I'd say. This card comes up so many times. Going first, and you're playing as Virtual World, they try to make, let's say, sometimes they'll make calamities on your turn to try to stop you from doing anything. But if you're playing some experienced player, they'll realize that calamities ain't too great against Salad. That you should probably just go for something else. Probably try to go for the OTK, but Torrential Tribute just stops that OTK completely. They hit the Shen shot on board, you just activate TT, and the whole thing's gone. This card's fantastic. They do have some ways to dodge it, as it is a Wen effect, but all in all, this card's really good. D-Barrier, I run 2 copies of this card. It ends Virtual World turn. This paired with any other one of our back row, it just ends your turn and you can still TK them because they won't be able to do anything. You call Synchro, they end on a Bamboos Link, and that's it. They can't do more than that. Yeah, this card is super self-explanatory for me. I think this is a mandatory card to run. And if you're not running it in the main, at least run it in the side. Because this card is, even so, like, you're playing as Rogue decks or even Tier 2 decks, you're playing as Dinos, it still hurts them to an extent. Playing against Drytron, it hurts them. Playing against Zoo, it hurts them. Playing against Eldritch, they're usually paired with Zoo, so that hurts them. It hurts so many decks just because every deck post MR5 is running enough of that XYZ Synchro, Ritual, or Pendulum, even Fusion categories in their deck, just because they can. really, really solid to run this card. Last card in the main deck is Different Dimension Ground. This card's a game ender. Flip it against Drytron, they lose. Flip it against Virtual World, they have a really hard time outing this card. Really, really difficult, because they have to know and they have to properly manage their resource to even make something like a Bamboozling. And the only way they actually out this is if they have like three names in their, or two or three names with the right names, Virtual World cards, and face up spell. And that's the way they out, or face up star trap. That's the way they out it. And but that is so situational. And usually there's not going to be by itself, right? You're going to be paired with a hand trap. You're going to be paired with another trap, and that's the reason we run so many traps, because it really helps us break boards. Now for the extra deck, we go triple Sunlight Wolf, triple Balinx, one Link Rebo, double Helio. So I'm considering Link Rebo into the salad package. It's pretty much there. So let's explain. Triple Sunlight, obviously it's mandatory, you need to run 3. I don't know why people are cutting it to 2. I think that's pretty ignorant to run 2 in the deck. Balinx, you link this off if you need a card in the grave, protect it from Torrential Tribute, and you do your thing next turn to OTK them. Fantastic card. Link Rebo, playing as a trap deck, you link into this, go into battle with access code, and go for game. Helio against back row spins them. This is definitely the most cuttable card in the salad cards though, but I still do like this. It comes up quite a bit. But yeah, that's pretty much the explanation for running this ratio. I wouldn't cut it down any less than this. These 6 I would not cut down at all. And these 3 are definitely cuttable, but I do still like the Link Rebo. For the access code OTK, we run the update transcode access code, so you just gain 3 pops. With this combo, it's really, really insane. 3 pops and over 10k damage. Really, really busted card. Then we go for the Nightmare Phoenix as the last Link monster. This card's just a staple in these decks at this point. It just really helps you out more back row decks to a farther extent. Even though Salad inherently has a good match against them, Phoenix still helps you play that a little bit better. And last 2 XYZs in the deck, we got 1 Baguska and 1 Dweller. Playing as Virtual World or even Drytron, Dweller ends their turn for the most part. And Baguska, you summon Baguska Defension against OTK decks. This card just stops them. They literally can't do anything. You just OTK them with your Link monsters. So yeah, I think these 2 are just definitely the best ones to run right now. Some other options is Tornado Dragon. That's pretty solid. Some people like Dugares. I don't like that card because I think that's just for the OTK. That's all it does. But yeah, and also if you want to run more Link monsters, Evermax is pretty good. That helps you out Dragoon. But you run enough cards to out Dragoon in the first place. But yeah, so that's it for the Salad deck profile. I think this list is pretty perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Let me know if you disagree with me in the comments. I always love to read your guys' comments. I want to see what you guys differ with me. And yeah, so if you guys are interested in my videos, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.